a single mother change the world around her? Follow the poignant journey of Lisa, who, in the face of great adversity, discovers the unshakable power of a mother to unite and transform her community. In the doctor's office, the large windows let in light that was meant to be welcoming, but for Lisa, it only seemed to highlight the emptiness of the moment. She held the hands of her twin sons, John and Matthias, squeezing them tighter than usual. The 5-year-olds looked around, curious about everything except the conversation unfolding. Dr. Williams, with a solemn expression, finished what he had to say. Lisa, as we mentioned in the last visit after the tests, the results confirm that John and Matthias are on the autism spectrum. The words fell into the silence of the space, heavy and definitive. Lisa felt a mix of relief at finally knowing and a despair at knowing too much. Her husband Richard, who had been crossing his arms until then, suddenly changed his posture. "Are you saying my kids are disabled?" Richard's voice was laden with barely contained anger. The doctor tried to explain calmly that autism was not a disability, but a condition that would require specific approaches and care. Richard wouldn't accept it. "This is ridiculous! They look normal! We need a second opinion! This can't be right!" Lisa tried to intervene. "Richard, we need to think about what's best for them." But Richard was already gathering his things, clearly upset and unwilling to listen any further. "I can't deal with this right now, Lisa. I need some time." And with those words, he left the office, slamming the door behind him, leaving an echo of finality that seemed to seal several rifts at once. Lisa looked at her children, their little faces confused and worried about the abrupt change in the atmosphere. She quickly wiped away a tear and crouched down to their level. "Everything is going to be okay, my loves. We will be okay," she said, though the words were more for herself. She hugged them, one in each arm, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders, but also the unconditional love she had for her children. The conversation in the office still echoed in her mind, but now it was time to return home, prepare dinner, and try to find normality in the new reality that awaited her. Inside, Lisa felt like she was falling apart, but outwardly, she displayed a fortress, a beacon of hope for John and Matthias, who now more than ever needed her strength. Lisa arrives home with her children, while Richard only comes home at night, drunk and violent. The door closed with a dull thud behind Lisa and her children. She looked around, the silence of the house amplifying the turbulence of her emotions. The twins, John and Matthias, sensing the heavy atmosphere, clung to her legs, looking up with inquisitive eyes. Lisa tried to smile at them. Richard entered, visibly intoxicated, his posture aggressive and the smell of alcohol filling the space. Lisa stiffened, bracing herself for the confrontation that was to come. "Richard, we need to talk," said Lisa, her voice firm but trembling. "Talk?" Richard laughed bitterly, looking at the children with disdain. "I have nothing to talk about these kids." Lisa felt the sting of his words but held her ground. "They are your children too, Richard. We need to think about them, take care of them together." "I am not the father of a disabled child." Richard's voice rose, merciless and cruel. "These children are not my kids." The boys recoiled, fear evident on their faces. Lisa felt her heart tighten, but her voice came out firmer this time. "They are your children, whether you accept it or not. I will take care of them, with or without you." There was a silence charged with defiance. Richard shook his head, laughed scornfully, and walked to the door. "I'm leaving. Take care of your perfect children," he spat the words out, left, and slammed the door. Lisa fell to her knees, tears finally breaking free. She sobbed, each breath a struggle. The little ones, feeling their mother's pain, came closer and hugged her. Lisa wrapped them in her arms, her heart shattered by what her children had to witness. With effort, she wiped her tears and looked at the two faces depending on her, their eyes still filled with confusion and fear. "It's going to be okay," she said, trying to infuse her voice with more confidence than she actually felt. "Mommy is here, and I promise we will be all right." She held them a little longer, taking deep breaths. Despite the pain and abandonment, a quiet determination began to form within her. Lisa knew the journey would be difficult, but she would do anything to protect and care for her children. That night, as the boys slept, Lisa stayed awake, planning her next step, aware that the road ahead would be full of challenges, but also knowing that she would not be alone in this fight. The morning light barely managed to penetrate the dusty curtains of the living room as Lisa began another day of struggles. Her eyes, tired and reddened, fixed on the stack of bills on the kitchen table. The soft sound of the twins playing in the next room was a constant reminder of why she needed to stay strong. John, the more observant of the two, noticed his mother's distress and approached with his favorite teddy bear, offering it as comfort. Matthias followed, hugging her leg while Lisa tried to smile at them, her expression masking the worry that gnawed at her from inside. "Mommy will fix everything, my loves," she murmured, stroking the boys' heads. The phone rang, briefly interrupting the pretended peace. It was Mrs. Mary, the landlady. Lisa felt her stomach churn as she heard the firm voice on the other end. "Lisa, I need to talk about the overdue rent. It's been 2 months." Lisa's voice trembled, but she strived to remain calm. "I understand, Mrs. Mary. I'm trying to find a solution. Please, just give me a little more time." "Time is something I can no longer give you, Lisa. I have bills to pay too. If you don't sort this out by the end of the week, I will have to ask for an eviction." The words were like a blow. Lisa swallowed hard, holding back tears that threatened to fall in front of her children. "Please don't do this. They're just kids, and I'll find a way." "Lisa, if you were capable of having children, now find a way to keep your home," Mrs. Mary replied, with not a hint of empathy in her voice. Hanging up the phone, Lisa sat down, defeated, but not for long. She looked at her children, who watched her with eyes full of innocence and trust. That sight reignited a spark of determination in her chest. "Let's go for a walk, boys," she said, standing up quickly. They walked to the nearest park, where Lisa let the twins distract themselves on the swings. As she pushed the boys, a gentle breeze brought a glimmer of clarity. She knew the battle would be hard, but she was determined to do whatever it took to protect her family at any cost. It was time to start fighting for real, not just to survive, but to offer her children the stability they deserved. Lisa knew the journey would be tough, but hope began to sprout in her heart. She just needed a chance, a small sign of support, and she was ready to seize it as soon as it appeared. At her lowest point, Lisa found herself exhausted, sitting in the old armchair in the living room while her children played quietly in the corner, oblivious to the tensions of the adult world. The harsh words of Mrs. Mary still echoed in her mind, blending with the sound of the television that her children watched softly. It was during this moment of introspection that she heard soft knocks at the door. With a sigh, Lisa stood up and opened the door, finding Mrs. Parker, her longtime neighbor, with a look of concern and empathy. "Lisa, I couldn't help but overhear. May I come in?" she asked, with a voice that carried the weight of genuine concern. Lisa nodded, moving aside to let her neighbor in. "I'm sorry, I really don't know what to do now," she confessed, feeling tears threaten to appear again. "Dear, I know it's not easy. I heard about your eviction," Mrs. Parker said, placing a comforting hand on Lisa's shoulder. "I don't have much, but what I can do is help with the boys while you look for a job that might pay better. They're always welcome to play with my grandchildren." Lisa felt a mix of relief and gratitude. "You don't know how much this means to me," she replied, giving her neighbor a tight hug. It was then that Mrs. Parker, with an encouraging smile, continued, "And there's one more thing. There's a program here in the community. a support group for families with children who have special needs. They offer resources, assistance, even legal advice. Maybe they can help with the rent situation. Lisa's eyes lit up with a spark of hope. Could you take me there? I don't know much about these programs. Of course, dear. We'll go first thing tomorrow morning, Mrs. Parker replied, with a firmness that reignited determination in Lisa. As the neighbor departed, Lisa slowly closed the door, feeling less alone in the world. With this newfound hope, she turned to her children, smiling as she crouched beside them. It's going to be okay, she murmured to herself and to them, believing it more now than before. The presence of Mrs. Parker, the promise of help, and the possibility of a new beginning through the support program were the rays of light Lisa needed to see through the darkness that enveloped her. On a sunny afternoon, Lisa sat in a circle of chairs arranged at the local community center, surrounded by other mothers whose lives had also been touched by autism. Each face reflected a unique story, marked by both struggle and resilience. As they talked, Lisa shared her own journey with John and Matthias, listening attentively to the experiences of others. I know how hard it is, said Marina, a mother with tired but hopeful eyes. My daughter was also diagnosed when she was 4. It's an emotional roller coaster. Lisa, moved by the group's honesty, felt an instant connection. The solidarity emanating from each story was tangible, and the room buzzed with the energy of women determined to make a difference not just in their own lives, but in the lives of other families facing similar challenges. Inspired, Lisa proposed, what if we organized an event here in the neighborhood? We could raise funds and increase awareness about what it really means to live and care for someone with autism. The idea was met with immediate enthusiasm. That could really help bring more people to our cause, agreed Joanna, a mother who had already organized small fundraisers. And the more support we have, the better we can help our children. The mothers quickly mobilized, dividing tasks and responsibilities. One would handle the event's publicity, another would gather donations for the bazaar, and Lisa took on the general organization and planning of the day. As they discussed, their children played together in the corner of the room, creating a colorful mural with paints and brushes provided by the center. Seeing the children interacting and laughing together, Lisa felt a surge of determination. Preparing for the event became more than a task. It was a mission. She knew that, with the support of these incredible women, the event would be a success. Let's show everyone how amazing our children are and how much we can achieve when we come together, Lisa said, her spirit lifted by hope and collective action. As the meeting concluded, the mothers hugged each other, strengthened by unity and mutual support. Lisa stayed behind to jot down the last details, feeling revitalized by the support network forming around her. She was ready to lead this event, driven not only by love for her children, but also by the power of a united community. The sun shone brightly over the town square, reflecting the hopeful atmosphere that permeated the air. Colorful stalls lined the area, selling everything from local crafts to homemade sweets, all produced by mothers and volunteers from the community. The children, including John and Matthias, ran joyfully among the stands, while soft music played in the background, provided by a small group of local musicians. Lisa, visibly moved, watched everything with a mix of pride and relief. The big day of the community event, a celebration she helped organize to raise funds and increase awareness of the special needs of children like her sons, had arrived. The support she found in her community was more than she could have ever hoped for, and today, all the efforts were bearing fruit. At one point, she was invited to take the stage, set up in the center of the square. With the microphone in hand, Lisa looked out at the crowd that had gathered before her. Families, friends, neighbors, and even strangers who had heard about the event and decided to support the cause. Taking a deep breath, she began to speak with a voice firm, yet laden with emotion. Good afternoon, everyone, Lisa began. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today. Each of you made a choice to spend this day with us, and that choice means more than words can express. She paused, looking into the eyes of some of the people in the crowd. A few months ago, my life and that of my children were turned upside down. We faced challenges we never imagined and reached moments when hope seemed like a distant dream. But it was at that very moment that our community showed its true strength. Lisa pointed to the stalls, to the children playing, to the volunteers working. This event, these stalls, these smiling children, it all started with a simple gesture of support from a neighbor and grew, fueled by the solidarity and compassion of all of you. She took a deep breath, her voice growing in conviction. Today, I see that we are not alone. True strength, true resilience comes from our ability to come together, to support one another, no matter how tough life may seem. Concluding, Lisa let her final words resonate throughout the square. May this day be a reminder that together we are stronger. May we always find ways to lift each other up, because that is how we create a better future for everyone. The applause was immediate and thunderous. Tears glistened in the eyes of many, touched by Lisa's sincerity and the message of hope. As she left the stage, her children ran to embrace her, and she knew that, despite everything, they had found their way through the hardships. If Lisa's story moved you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Your support is essential for us to continue bringing inspiring stories like this one. Comment below with your suggestions or personal stories. We love hearing from you, and it helps us grow and improve our work. We count on your participation